Howdy folks, this is Father Dougal 9000 here, and welcome to another episode of Dougal's Game Finish Chronicles, a series in which I talk about the games I've played and beaten, as part of the Game Finish Challenge from the Hardcore Gaming 101 forum. Usually, I try to have something to say in the introduction to these vids. It's a little preamble before we get going. But for whatever reason, I can't think of anything at all for this video. I suppose I can tell a joke. That always helps to keep the morale up. Ahem. What do you call a vampire who bites his victims on their nasal extrusion? Nosferatu. Oh, shite, I could have saved that for the next episode, where I do actually talk about a vampire game. I guess you have that to look forward to now. So, in the meantime, let's begin. Yes! Today's games were originally logged from the 17th to the 22nd of June, 2021. Dragon Ball Kai Ultimate Butouden for the Nintendo DS. I've been itching to play through a handheld fighting game for some time. It's not something I ever really did, and then I remembered this game existed. It was the last Dragon Ball game to be released on the DS, which had many Dragon Ball games of various genres, but for whatever reason it was never localized in English. There's only a fan translation, and even then they only translate the menus and some bits of the game. Not the story mode cutscenes, which is a shame because those look really nice. Cute, super deformed models of the characters doing their thing, and there's some cool dual screen shot compositions going on. Obviously this is not new for Game Republic, they'd previously done this with the Dragon Ball Origins games. But it's a shame that this can't be appreciated by a wider audience, especially since Dragon Ball games were in quite the rut otherwise during this time. From around 2010 to 2014, there were a handful of games, and they tended to be either weird experiments that didn't work out, like Ultimate Tenkaichi or Battle Z, and then you had the regurgitated leftovers like the incomplete Budokai HD collection and Dragon Ball Z Connect, which is literally just Ultimate Tenkaichi with you punching the screen. It's especially a shame this didn't get localized because it's a very solid basic fighter that offers fast and frantic combat, loads of characters with tons of customization, and plenty of challenges to take on. When playing this, I just stuck with playing through the story mode, which does the usual Dragon Ball Z thing of adapting the Dragon Ball Z anime, so the last 4 story arcs you go from Raditz to Buu. Same old stuff, but the cutscenes are really nice, even if I didn't watch most of those due to the lack of subtitles, meaning I couldn't quite get engaged with them. But there's also what-if battles and whole ridiculous scenarios to play out, which are quite fun, that are definitely worth giving a look. I admit I'm a little bit disappointed that characters don't have exclusive combos outside of their special moves, but it's admittedly a fair compromise when you've got over 50 characters to play as, including King Kai of all people. That's great. As for the combat itself, it's perhaps my favorite of all the 2D Dragon Ball fighters I've played. There's never a dull moment, no matter what difficulty you're playing at. And I really like the mechanic where you can change your strength while making your ki charge slower or faster on the fly. That's a really great way of adding some on-the-fly strategy. I plowed through this one on the strength of its fighting, but I'm definitely thinking I might try the old challenge mode and see what else there is to find. I hope that you'll enjoy this too, if you check it out, which you definitely should, because it is wicked good. Donald Duck Goin Quackers, or Quack Attack if you're from Europe, for the Nintendo 64. When I originally played this game, I'd gotten quite obsessed with the idea of cataloging video games which tracked their playtime. You know, you'd look at the save slot or somewhere in the menu and it would say, "You've been playing this game for so many hours and minutes." I even started a whole forum thread that kind of petered out after a while because it's actually way harder to find examples of this stuff than you'd think. In the process of trying to find more games, I grabbed a bunch of Nintendo 64 titles that I'd been thinking about playing anyway, and hoping that maybe they'll have something? Maybe? This version of Goin Quackers doesn't track your playtime, but I thought I'd give it a bash anyway, since it's quite a simple, straightforward platformer. Something that's really interesting to me is that this version, which was also released on the PC and the Dreamcast, has a completely different set of levels from the PlayStation port, which itself has entirely different stages compared to the PlayStation 2 and GameCube version, essentially making for a trilogy of linear Donald Duck themed 3D platformers that were released within a few weeks of each other. Man, I love how cross-gen ports used to be so varied in that sense. Now, my first experience with this game was through the PlayStation version, but I actually prefer this port because the level design is a little trickier, and it hides its secret pickups in some pretty clever spots. There's also some very nice graphics on display, with Donald being quite well animated and stages changing the time of day or setting as you progress through each world. I had the plan of trying to unlock the bonus 5th stage in each world by grabbing all your nephew's missing toys, but the emulator bugged out whenever I tried to talk to them and effectively crashed the game, so I decided not to bother with it. Honestly, that might have been for the best, since the level's pace doesn't feel so stop-start now that I'm not trying to find the toys. It's not an especially great platformer, but it's a decent romp if you're in the mood for something basic. Also, this version was developed by the Casablanca division of Ubisoft, meaning it's the first time I've played a video game made by an African team, to my admittedly woeful knowledge, but still. And that's really cool. Tony Hawk's Underground 2 for the Xbox. Now, this one was actually a replay that I decided to do quickly of the classic mode instead of the main story mode. So if you're hoping this is going to be a spirited defense or a massive slagging off session of the story mode and its sense of humor and all that, it's not. I quite like Tony Hawk's Underground 2, it's one of my favorite games in the series, but we're talking about the classic mode today. And the classic mode brought back the old style of gameplay from Pro Skaters 1 to 3, where you complete as many goals as you can in 2 minutes. There's even a pretty neat addition to this game's take on the concept, where you can choose which stage you want to do next every couple of levels. If it had that structure of unlocking more characters and cheats by beating the mode as every character like in Pro Skaters 1 to 3, this multiple routes thing would be a really cool way of varying things up upon replays. Unfortunately, it only ties unlocking things to completing the 2 difficulty modes and then beating all the goals, but it's a nice gesture nonetheless. What's not so good, I think, is the way that you unlock more stages and how that's changed from Pro Skaters 1 to 3. Originally, you'd have a set number of goals to complete throughout the game. Beat 12 goals in order to unlock level 4, that kind of thing. But now you have to complete a certain amount of goals in every stage. You know, like beat 6 goals in level 1 to unlock level 2. Beat 6 goals in level 2 to unlock level 3, and so on. To me, that's way less interesting because it discourages completing all the goals in a stage since it doesn't matter once you've unlocked the next one. And it means that you can't revisit earlier stages to attempt previously tricky goals if you're stuck on the latest stage. If I remember correctly, this structure was what the later Tony Hawk games used for their classic modes as well, and it's a shame because I feel that change makes them feel a lot more disposable than they used to be. It is nice to revisit the regular story mode stages from Thug 2 with brand new goals, and to see the many stages from Pro Skater 1 to 3 that they included here with new features or coats of paint. But in regards to the actual classic mode, I'm not that keen on the overall execution. Good game, but not into this mode. Sorry. And with that, we've wrapped up another episode of the series. I hope that you enjoyed watching, and that you'll tune in for the next video, which will be ever so slightly special. Ever so slightly. Thank you so much, and until we meet again, have a wonderful day.